Hey everybody, welcome to the Compclub Web Dev Workshop. So this will be a workshop in which you guys learn about web development and all the coding and different languages that are involved in web development. And you'll also be learning to make a finished website using these skills that we'll be teaching you throughout the workshop. So without further ado, let's get started. So we are CSESoc's Compclub, and what we are? Basically, we are part of UNSW, so the University of New South Wales, and we're the CSESoc, which is the Computer Science and Engineering Society's outreach to high school students. So primarily, we run workshops to promote studying programming, and all of us will be studying some sort of computing at university. So I'm Eric, I'm a third-year software engineering student, and with me I have
Kenneth, and I'm a second-year computer science student. As Eric said previously, we'll be making a website themed for the upcoming Olympics. This website will be programmed in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We will take you on a quick tour for the website.
So yeah, this is the website we'll be helping you guys build throughout the series of videos. Here on the homepage, we have a timer indicating when the next Olympics is going to happen. So 425 days, 13 hours, 6 minutes, and 42 seconds. And we also have a GIF here. And inside events, we just have elements that are generated dynamically using JavaScript, which we'll be teaching you in this course as well. And an about page, which will be mainly used to teach you guys the basics of HTML.
We'll now have Eric cover in detail what components make up a web page.
Yeah, so in our web page, we have the three languages that Kenneth mentioned earlier. So our first one is HTML, and HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. So it sounds very fancy, but basically, we can just think of it as being the base of the website. So it tells the computer how to present the structure and text for a website. So a common analogy that is used when we're talking about HTML, JavaScript, and CSS is the analogy of a cake. So the HTML is basically just the cake, I guess, like as you could say, like the sponge cake, if you were having like a decorated cake. And it's basically, what's at the bottom, very boring. But CSS, which is our icing, makes it look very pretty and makes it very interesting. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And basically, this is what is used to give our website style. So things like color, position, and a lot more that we'll learn about later. And finally, our JavaScript is like our candles. So, candles are very interactive. They actually flicker about and move, unlike the rest of our cake, hopefully. And it lets us do cool and interactive things. So JavaScript often will be in the form of alerts. So maybe you press a button and the web page gives you an alert, or you press a button and then something gets generated. So that's how the interaction all shows up. All right, so to give you guys an idea of HTML syntax, I'll pass it over to Kenneth.
Yeah, I'll be covering basic HTML syntax. Syntax refers to the way a programming language expects to be written so the computer can compile and run the program. HTML is constructed using tags containing HTML elements. Normally, tags include both an opening and a closing tag. In our example, we have an opening tag containing the element HTML as denoted by the diamond brackets. This is then followed by an ellipsis, which can be replaced with more tags or can be just left empty. Finally, we have the closing tag shown using the / followed by HTML. Closing tags in HTML, if it does exist, always has a / followed by the corresponding HTML element. To give a more practical overview of HTML, we'll have a look at the HTML of google.com.au. So here we have the webpage google.com.au. So how do we actually analyze the HTML of this website? We first right-click the website and click Inspect. This brings up the console. And underneath the Elements tab, we actually can see that this represents all the HTML on the website. So as you can see, the HTML here comes with an opening tag followed by a closing tag. And yeah, as my mouse cursor scrolls through this website, you can see it highlight different elements blue. this is actually the corresponding HTML element this element refers to. So say, for example, I want to click one specific, I want to check the HTML of one specific element. I can do that by clicking the top left corner here, clicking this, and let's say I want to change the text of Google search. So I click this, and this should now bring me to the HTML element of Google search. I can now edit the value to change it to Eric search. As you can see, this now displays Eric search here. Let's say I don't like Eric search. I can also just delete this HTML element from this elements column by pressing delete. And now Eric search is gone for good. Not only can you do that, you can also change the styling of an element. So let's say I don't like the color gray. I want to change it to something like blue. I can actually do that by just clicking blue. And this gives me a list of options. And as I scroll through the options, you can also see the HTML element changing color. This makes adding new styles really, really easy to test for your web page. And if you don't like your final product, you can always just reload and it's all gone. So this concludes a quick tutorial about how to use the console to assist you in developing your own website.
So after we've changed our buttons to Eric search, it turns out Eric has actually found something, and that is the console. So a console is an interface for communicating with the website, and you can actually find it on the web page we were at before. So we'll kind of show that off a bit later. But basically, the console is a way that we can type to the browser, and like I mentioned earlier, it would be to the right of the elements which we just opened. So we can communicate by using the JavaScript language, which we'll be learning about later. But basically, we can type some simple commands that will do things. So here, alert hello world, like it suggests, will just alert the user hello world. So as you can see, that is a screenshot of what happens. Alright, so you may be wondering, well, that's cool and all, but how do we get started programming? Well, that's an excellent question. So we'll be using Glitch to code our website. And Glitch is basically just an online text editor, which allows us to type code and make our own projects within it. So now we'll head over to this website. So if you click on the link, or if you type the link into your search bar, this will take you to the template for our project. And once you are on that page, you need to click on the Remix to Edit button. And this button is located in the top right, and we can see that it is highlighted on the slide. So hopefully that will help you find the button. But basically, clicking on this Remix to Edit button enables you to make your own copy of the template and then edit it yourself. So now that we have our own project, it's always a good idea to create an account so that you can save your work, and maybe in future, if you ever decide, maybe I want to make a similar website, or maybe I want to just look back and kind of think or see like some of the things I might have forgotten over time, I can look back at my old projects and see all the code that I've done before. So in order to make an account in Glitch, what you'll need to do is you'll have to click on the face on the left side. So it should look like a smiley face, just like the one that is highlighted in red. And once you click on the smiley face, this should appear. So they'll open like a kind of drop-down menu. And from that menu, all you need to do is click the Create Account button. And that'll enable you to make your very own account. So once you've made your own account, we can take a look at the code that we have by clicking on Show. So it'll say Show, and there'll be a icon, which is a pair of glasses. And you can click on either in a new window or next to the code. Right. So I kind of talked about this earlier, but I'll go through in a bit more detail what Glitch is. So like I mentioned earlier, Glitch is an online text editor, and it's mostly used for VR projects. So if you're interested in that, we will have VR workshops as well. So, just put that out there. You can always look forward to those. But it's a great online editor, in particular for HTML, which is what both VR and web development run on. So a text editor is somewhere where we can write all of our code so that a computer can run it. And it has instructions that the computer follows. And once the computer follows these instructions, it'll be able to build our program. So specifically, Glitch, like I mentioned earlier, is a text editor for VR projects as well as websites. And it's very handy because it means that we don't need to install anything, which could be a big hassle. And it also allows us to save it online. So all you need to do to access it is to log in. So that means that it will stop us from accidentally deleting it, just in case we might forget what the file is and delete it because we need to save up or like free up some space.
Finally, we are now moving on to some actual HTML elements. The first and most common element in HTML is the div, short for division. The div tag in HTML serves as a container on our web page, which allows us to display HTML elements such as text and images. For now, we can change the styling of the HTML tag by adding the property style without any quotation mark, followed by an equals with the properties encased with quotations. So in our example below, we have style equals color orange, and we also set height and width of our div. In this example, the properties are color, height, and width. And our values for them are orange, 60%, and 100 pixels, or px. One common metric used is a percentage sign, which is to, as you guys can guess, have the property be as percentage of the parent container. What this means is that at width 60%, we have the container spanning 60% of the width of whatever container it is currently stored in. Another more common and static metric we use is called px, which is short for pixels. What this metric does is not determined by the properties of the parent container. Rather, it's just a strict measure. What that means is when you set the height of elements as the same pixels, they will be the same height regardless of whatever container they are currently stored in. We'll move on to a quick demonstration now. Here, I'll be using a text editor, JSFiddle, to show you the basics of HTML syntax. The goal of this demonstration is to show you how divs work in HTML. This will cover adding divs within divs and a more detailed demonstration of the metric units in styling. So first off, we start by adding a div. We'll have some text inside the div. So if I click run, as you can see, the div now has the words text in it. So we can change the style of this div by adding the property style with the values inside a quotation mark. So here we want to change the background color to be, let's say, red. So this is done by adding the property background and the value red. So say I want to add more properties, I can do that by adding a semicolon followed by whatever like extra properties I want to add. So I can change the border to be 1 pixel solid black. This will simply add a 1 pixel solid black border to our div. As you can see, the background is now red and we have a 1 pixel border surrounding the div. So I can add more divs within divs. So say I want to add another div with the text and more text. So notice that even though I didn't add styling to the second div, it still inherits the styling from the container. And then the container of this div here is the very first div we created because this is inside. So if I move this div outside, you notice that this no longer inherits the properties. That's because this div is no longer contained within the first div we created. So the next step is to demonstrate, the metric system. So we have to add a styling and we want to change the width. And let's say we want to make it 50%. When I click run, it is exactly obvious what changed. So I have to add a background color to the second div. So we'll make the background pink, makes the text a little bit easier to see. As you can see, the div now has a background pink, and notice that it only spans 50% of the width of the parent container, which in this case is the first div. So that's what the percentage metric means. So if I make it 80%, as you guys can guess, it'll be 80% of the width of the parent container. So the next metric we'll be covering is pixels. So if I'm gonna make this div 100 pixels, notice that this is 100 pixels and then pixels is a constant value. What that means is that if I create another div with 100 pixels, it will be the same width as the div on top. As you can see, they're both 100 pixels. So the reason why it's slightly misaligned is because the div on top here has a border 1 pixel solid black. So if I add a 1 pixel solid black border here, we notice that there's actually the same length or the same width. So basically, to reiterate, pixels are constant and does not actually depend on the parent container, and percentage depends on the parent container. So this concludes our demonstration, and I hope this was useful. So now that I've shown you the basics of using divs, it's up to you guys to play around with the styles and metric units and see what wacky styles you can create. The next HTML element we'll be covering is the list. Just like lists in real life, lists on a web page kinda just list stuff. In HTML, there are two kinds of lists. The first is the unordered list, where the items by default have bullet points in front of them, and the unordered list, where the items by default will have numbers in front of them, like 1, 2, 3, and etc. Note that I say by default because it is possible to move the styling by setting the property list style to be equal to the value none inside the style property of the HTML element, which is list in this case. Yep, so we add an element to our first list using the li tag. Again, we'll have another demonstration. So in this demonstration, I'll be demoing two different types of lists. The unordered list denoted by ul tag and the ordered list denoted by an ol tag. So we covered how to add list elements to HTML. We do that by simply adding a HTML tag list or li, and we can add some text. So let's just add test1. And here we'll add another li element. So both ul, unordered list, and ordered list take li as the items of a list. So I can add test1 here as well. And when I click run, notice that one of them has a dot and one of them has a number. Can you guess which one is which? Hint. The ordered list has the number and the unordered list has the dot. Yep. So if I add more items to the list, there'll just be more dots, so test2. However, if I add more items to the ordered list, the number will also increase. As you can see, one of them just has dots and the other one has numbers. So obviously, you can imagine what kind of use cases they have. So ordered list will probably be like a schedule or an unordered list will probably just be a list of action items and etc. So you can actually remove the styling from the list by just, again, adding the style attribute to the opening tag and changing the list style to be equal to none. When I click run, as you can see, the dots are now removed. Yep, this concludes the quick demonstration. You can visit W3 Schools here for a more comprehensive list on what other properties and values you can add to styles for HTML elements. Don't worry, we'll be having an in-depth look at the styles in a later video.
Alright, so now that we've gone through some of the basic elements of HTML, we have a bit of a quiz to test your knowledge and hopefully get a good idea of what you've learnt from the first video. Unfortunately, we haven't programmed anything yet, but don't worry, we'll get to programming very soon. In our next video, we'll have a programming task, so look forward to that.